Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond Chizito, your host on Spectrum tonight. What are the implications of the 2012 primary living examination results on the primary education system in Uganda? The 2012 primary living examination results were released today, showing a slight improvement in performance compared to those of 2011. The results show that some 88.4% of candidates passed last year compared to 86.4% in the year before, an improvement of just 2%. Some 10.9% of the pupils passed in Division 1 compared to 9.6% in 2011. Statistics indicate that 480,067 pupils passed the exams out of the 663 students who registered to sit the exams, meaning that 85,596 pupils failed these exams. English was the best done subject, followed by social studies and then science, with mathematics emerging as the worst done subject. Most of the candidates, that's 81.9%, sat the examinations under government's UPE scheme. However, when asked for the percentage of UPE pupils who passed the exams, officials said it was difficult to accurately compute. The best performing districts include Kampala, Wakiso, Mbarara, Mukono, Kabramaido, Rukunji, Rubirizi, among others. The worst performing districts are Luka, Queen, Namutumba, Kayunga, Manafwa, Buko, Kaliro, Manafwa, well, I read that again, Kaliro, Kayunga, and Kamuli, among others. Absenteeism was one of the biggest challenges noted. Results for 1,603 candidates have been withheld due to irregularities, most of them from Cheyangire Primary School in Lengo District, Zero Way Primary School in Luero, St. Mary's Kaihura Primary School in Jojo as well. A quick analysis of the statistics show that urban schools, which are mainly privately owned, performed better, a trend that has been manifested for many years. These results come at a time when there are calls to review the education system on top of addressing the challenges. It has also come at a time when proposals are being made to review our curriculum and to reduce on the time people spend at school. So tonight on Spectrum, we look at the performance in PLE and the implications of primary education system as we seek solutions to the challenges to make education better in this country. Our guest tonight, Mr. Fagil Mande, Chairman of the Uganda National Examinations Board. He's on his way to the studio. Right now with us we have Honorable Bettie Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Bettie Kamya.
Thank you, Edmund, and as usual, most Mondays, good evening, listeners.
Honorable Bettie Kamya, what in your view is the quality of our P7 results today?
First of all, I want to congratulate the children that passed their primary living examinations, and also congratulate their parents and guardians and families, because it is not a one-man show. There are many aspects of life where parents go hungry, go unclothed, have to give up a lot of things, opportunity costs, and some kids have to stay home so that others can go to school. Before a child finally gets to P7 and to sit their exams, so much, there's so much happens to the family, to the child, and to the school itself. So I want to congratulate all of those that participated in this child finishing P7, plus of course the teachers, the schools, and the people that have put in effort, because obviously there are people that put in effort, who do their work well, the teachers who are so poorly paid but continue to teach amidst very, very difficult circumstances. Both those who teach in government schools and those who teach in private schools. Some who teach in private schools who get 70,000 a month, 80,000 a month, and so conditions are hard for the teachers, the parents, and the pupils. So I think congratulations are in order. having said that, well, the results that we are given this year, they were slightly better than last year. Then we go to all these fancy statistics. You know, people like statistics, because statistics, this kind of statistics, they make life easy. You know, you don't need to think a lot. If they give you good statistics, then you say either good or bad statistics, and then you just say good or bad, without really knowing what lies under or behind what you're really talking about. But as a person who interacts with the children at different points throughout the year, I think I know that the standard is very poor. There's no way a child can have a good standard when the teacher's standard is so poor. A teacher can write a letter to you or a comment on the report or whatever it is they write, and you just wonder whose child this teacher teaches on the average, apart from, you know, like, apart from the 5% or so good schools. But on the whole, there are many schools that use licensed teachers. They're called licensed teachers. I think they're called licensed teachers, non-qualified teachers. And even those that are qualified, they are real school dropouts, some of them, who only went into teaching, not because they love teaching, but because maybe it was the only choice they had at the time. So all these things put together put the quality of education on the whole to be very, very, very low. I also think that we need to consider, as we talk about the statistics, the 80% passing rate, the objective. I think the objective is also important. The objective of an education in Uganda seems to be to pass the exams. So teachers will make students cram, will make students repeat past papers. In fact, past papers are a big thing in our education curriculum. Newspapers will print them in the papers and people buy them and make the students repeat them and repeat them. And the teachers spot those that are likely to come based on how often they have come in the past so many years, 10 years. If this one came and did it, it's likely to come. So then they spot and make their kids cram and make sure that they are prepared to pass this exam, but not really to have an education or to acquire knowledge. So I think that's a very, very big problem that we have, and it's a good thing that Mr. Fagil Mande is coming here, because we need to hear once and for all, if you like, what plans there are to give our children an education, to equip them with the knowledge that will help them in later life, not just to pass an exam so that they can go on to the next level. I find that, you know, okay, maybe these are young children in P7, but that's where it should begin, training people to think.
Yes.
I remember what they used to call SST,
Social Studies.
School Science Project, SSP.
All right.
Way back when I was still in school, there was a new program which was called, I think it was called School Science Project, where the questions were more objective. Like they would ask, there are 10 birds on a tree. You hit one bird with a stone. How many will remain?
None, most times.
Yes, but if you say, most people will say 9, because they just think 10 minus 1 gives you 9. So the child is trained to think objectively, to think scientifically, to think dynamically, not just to answer, questions. But I don't know whether that is still there, whether we are still 10 minus 1 equals automatically equals 9. And I don't know what happened to that special science project where science was, especially kids were taught to think, and to think on their own, so that an answer is not necessarily this is the right answer, but more following the trend of thought, how the child is developing their answer. Then the teacher would grade the child based on the trend of their thoughts. So really, I think we need desperately a review of our education curriculum, and we've been saying this, I think, since 30 years, but I don't know how much is happening.
All right. We'll get your perception on that later, but let's look at what we have right now. You'll give us your own ideas about how you want it to be improved, but let's look at what we have right now. What kind of pupils does it turn out, the education system?
First of all, there are some that will automatically go to the, I don't know what kind of top schools, if you like, and there are different types of schools. There are the traditional schools, Gayaza, Budo, Namagunga. Then there are the modern schools. They have these two schools have different.
The traditional and the modern.
And the modern. They have different cultures. They have different character.
The Namiriangos versus the Chitendis.
Yeah, exactly. Schools, the Kabojas, the Viennas, the St. Lawrence. They have a slightly different character to the traditional schools, Budo, Gayaza. And you'll find that the modern schools sort of empower kids to be more assertive and more confident. I've noticed that.
The modern schools?
The modern schools. They nurture kids to be more assertive, more self-confident. They express themselves better. But I think it's a bit more like the traditional churches and the Pentecostal churches, how they develop different characters. How the Pentecostal churches are more flashy, they dress better, they speak English
in a certain way.
In a certain way, so they have a different character.
What becomes God gone?
Whereas that one also we need to understand it and appreciate it. But then there are, of course, the UPE schools. In Rubaga, where I come from, there are 607. The last time I checked, when I was a member of parliament, there were 617 schools in Rubaga, but only 17 of them were government schools. And I doubt that government schools have increased, although I highly suspect that the private schools have increased. So that is the kind of, but some of the schools, and I'm putting them in quotes, they are in people's backyards, they are in people's garages, they are in between, what do you call them? Gullies, they're in between. So we need, I think, the Ministry of Education to have a serious program of classifying schools. They should classify them, because there are places where there's no even fresh air in school. They're clamped in between buildings. They call it in the gullies, And then there are schools with lots of fresh air and playgrounds and where kids can move out. I think there should be, like they classify hotels, 5 star, 5 star. 1 to 5. Yeah, schools should be classified so that people know where they are taking their kids and what they should expect out of those schools.
That will turn out very interesting results. Some schools will probably not be rated at all.
I think so. That's what I'm thinking. Some will not, because I've seen some that are just in someone's garage. It started a school. There's a beautiful signpost by the roadside, so it even becomes a milestone. What do you call
a landmark?
A landmark at such and such a school. It's a beautiful signpost. But when you go inside there,
you get shocked. There's a university along.
You'll be shocked.
As we go to the university, I've seen. in the news.
You just look for the toilet facilities. They're just not there, and you ask what happens, when nature calls, and you have no clue what the students and the teachers do. It is terrible. So really, I think that much as we are reporting so many numbers that are registered in schools, we need to think about the quality of life and the quality of education while at school.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, what are the implications of the 2012 primary living examination results on our primary education system? Our guest, Mr. Fagil Mande, we expect him to join us shortly. He's the chairman of the Uganda National Examinations Board. The results came out today. Honorable Bettie Kamya, president of the Uganda Federal Alliance Party, you will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Honorable Kamya, again, we'll talk about your views of where the education system should be going, but let's look at it now. What does this system give a chance for children to rise up regardless of their circumstances? Can you have a dream child, a child rising from a bad school and emerging tops, succeeding in life eventually? Does that chance exist?
I think if it exists, it does not exist in the same way that it used to long ago. But before I get there, I want to share with you an experience I had in the 8th Parliament. When we were in the 8th Parliament, I think it was 2009 results that came out. The Minister of Education then was Honorable Namirembe Bitamazire,
Yes.
and she presented a report of PLA to Parliament. And so generally the students had performed very badly, and so we're discussing the poor performance of students. And I think the first person that put up their hands was an MP from Busoga. And she said, our problem in my constituency is that we suffer from, she called it some eye disease, which is very prevalent in that part of Busoga and generally in Busoga. So she said, in Busoga we have problems with this eye disease, so children normally cannot read the blackboard, and parents cannot afford to buy them eyeglasses. So they're struggling with that problem, and it was the reason that the results were very poor, or usually poor in Busoga. And she sat down. Another MP put up her hand. This was a lady from Masindi, I remember. And the MP from Masindi reported that in Masindi, the prevalence of epilepsy is so high that I think what they said was that in Budongo forest there is an insect that epilepsy, and that out of every 4 children, 1 is likely to be epileptic, and this affects them during exam time, the pressures of exam time. And it was like, oh, that's terrible. And then someone put up her hand again. This was Alice Salaso from Teso, and she said, our problem, we've been having the drought, the famine, the hunger, teachers and students, they're all out chasing lizards and things. There was no food. And then Alice sat down. Then Bito Sanywa from Kitgum stood up and said that their problem was after the war, people were relocating. So and after that, everybody was putting up their hands to say the reason why the results were bad. So if you want to, apart from the general issues that we have with our education system, with the government support in terms of equipment, in terms of teacher support, in terms of the syllabus itself, there are regional issues that are very serious and that need to be given serious attention. But they cannot get that serious attention on a national platform, because regional issues tend to become small issues in the national, at the national table. So those issues should not be left out. But the aggregate is that since none of those regional issues are handled with the attention that they deserve, the aggregate is that the whole country is left to deal with their own problems. And then the aggregate is that the students on the whole in the country don't get a good education. So I think that one needs to be considered very seriously, that there are serious regional issues in each region that significantly impact on the quality of education, but they do not get the attention they deserve in the national arena, the national table, or the national parliament, in the national arena, so they don't get addressed at all.
We'll talk about that in a short while, but first of all, let's look at the curriculum itself, because they all sit, under the same curriculum. What should be changed about it?
I think that the curriculum, first of all, our education system is like everything else in Uganda. And normally when I'm debating or presenting, I find myself saying the same thing, that this is not in isolation. The problems in education are not in isolation. There are the problems you find in health, in whatever. Every sector of Uganda has problems, and they are related. One to the management, to the attention, to budgetary allocation, to innovation, to training, to motivation. They are all related. So, but to answer your question, what needs to be dealt with our education is to modernize it. We are still talking, I think it's the same old syllabus, the same old laws. If you're talking about the legal department, the same old. We need to style up.
What do you mean, style up?
Look at what's happening around the world and give students, it's no longer you sit there and I lecture. It's more, let's discover together.
No, but you're talking about primary, that's foundation.
Especially primary.
You don't expect them to think innovative. First of all, you give them foundation.
Yeah, exactly. But especially primary. That's where you've got to teach the kids to be. That's why you give them toys, by the way. That's why they buy different types of toys and let the kids play and adventure and experiment with toys so that they can discover. So this question of spoon feeding is a big problem. It hampers innovation and creativity, and that is why we are finding adults who are managing this country who are not innovative, who do things as they were done before. If you propose anything new in a ministry or in an organization, you'll find a very, very difficult time getting across, because people are used to doing things the way they were taught. They're used to receiving, not participation. And you see it in almost every aspect of our life. So we need to design a curriculum that helps pupils, even young kids, to be innovative right from the beginning, to be curious, to ask questions, not just not to be curious and wait to receive and be told and be given a question which you must answer only in a certain way, and if you don't answer it in that way, you failed it. Then where is innovation? Where is it going to come from? Where is entrepreneurship? Where is it going to come from? So I think as we think of designing a system, we've got to think that the world has moved on, especially entrepreneurship and innovation and self-drive. And all those things that they talk about these days: self-drive, self-motivation, innovation, entrepreneurship, and self-confidence. They've got to be built in the curriculum when the kids are youngest.
Let's look at the amount of work that children are given, the syllabus, many subjects. People have complained that there is an overload. Is that an issue?
It is. Well, for me, maybe I'm speaking from a different angle also, because my last born is in university, so I don't know between what's happened in the last 10 years. I'm not very conversant with what happened. But
well, I'll give you an example. I have children in primary school, for instance, and one of the complaints, I won't mention which schools they go to, and they are literally walking like hunchbacks because they carry a big bag, not given a timetable, so they don't know what subjects they're handling today, and they carry the whole load of bags, like 10 kilos, on their backs every day.
Yeah, and when they come home, each of those subjects has given them some numbers to do.
And you have to do homework in the night.
They have to do homework.
They carry this heavy baggage in the bag. It's scientifically it's been proven that it affects their skeletal system.
I think that's right. Those are all the things that we need to think about. Unfortunately, where Rwanda has done a bit about providing computers. I think that there's a project that is...
People end up surfing pornography on the internet. There was that issue in Rwanda as well. They gave them computers with the internet. They are good.
Yeah, but then, even if they end up surfing pornography, during class time, instead of saying pull out a book and you get your satchel, which has 100 books or so, all your 100 books are on your computer. So your small laptop can carry all those books. It's a pity that we haven't got there yet. But those are some of the things that we should be aspiring to do. I mean, all this money that is getting lost left and right would be very well placed if they started providing cheap computers for schools.
That is probably debatable, but this is Spectrum. Already want to go for a break. We'll be back. When we come back, we'll look at some regions. Are some places doomed to failure? Are they cut out in a cocoon? They will never rise up beyond their current circumstances and encumbrances. We're going for a break. We'll be back to stay tuned.
Discover the new invigorating taste of Red Vodka Lemon. Red Vodka Lemon. Reinvent the night. Not for sale to persons under 18. Uganda Communications Commission is currently conducting nationwide mandatory SIM card registration. Register your SIM card in a few easy steps. Visit your telecom operator's customer care center or any other designated registration center and provide your phone number, a copy of a valid ID or any other valid ID with accompanying photographs such as a passport, driver's permit, voter's card, or a letter from your LC. Information on your physical address or residence will also be required. SIM card registration protects mobile phone users from incidences of fraud, incitement, terrorism, and hate messages, among others. Please note that SIM card registration is mandatory, and those who fail to register risk having their SIM cards deactivated. The registration deadline is 1st March 2013. All information shall remain confidential. Let's make communication safe. Register your SIM card today.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. What are the implications of the 2012 primary living examination results on the primary education system in this country? Our guests, Mr. Honorable Bettie, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance Party. Mr. Fagil Mande had indicated he would join us on this show. He's the chairman of the Uganda National Examinations Board. Well, he inexplicably failed to make it. We can't reach him on his phone, which is now switched off. But you will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion or even ask questions. Honorable Bettie, Kamya, the regions, do we still have a pattern that is being followed today that shows certain regions perform well and other regions don't perform well consistently?
Of course, like I had started saying, there are regions that have regional issues that directly impact the response to education. I mean, like Bosoga, I said, if you've got a problem of the eyes and the kids can't read the blackboard and the parents can't buy them reading glasses, that is a big problem. And once you can't follow, you just give up. You just go to school maybe to enjoy the other extracurricular, the dancing and the sports, and people excel in those because they don't need to read about to use their eyes. And then of course there are regions like Acholi with the nodding disease. What do you expect? How do you expect them to perform well? The 20-year war in Acholi, where children had to change their lifestyle completely. You know, there was a lifestyle, regrettable as it was, in the camps. But that's what they were born into, and that's what they knew. Now they had to go back, they had to go to the village to a completely different lifestyle of fetching water, of fetching firewood, of walking 5 kilometers to school. That one, of course, must have significantly impacted on the children and their response to education. And there are people, kids in places where there's been famine and hunger. So there, I mean, we know about Busoga and the Jiggers. We have stories of a whole family eaten up by, a whole village actually, eaten up by Jiggers. You know how you cannot,
in this day and age,
concentrate, you cannot, if you, some of us who know a bit about how a Jigger feels, you just can't do anything. If there's Jigger, one, now you're talking about 100 Jiggers all over your body. I mean, there are things, apart from us looking at the capacity of the brain to the capacity of the brain to read and understand, but the environment in which the brain is operating. Not even to mention the budget, I mean the diet, because the diet is supposed to grow the body and the brain is part of the body. So where there are serious diet deficiencies, like we know in many places in Uganda, where there are serious dietary deficiencies, there will be serious IQ issues.
Yeah.
So
if you eat badly, you think badly.
You think badly. So I think we need to tackle the whole question of education from a holistic viewpoint and put all these things together and not just consider the material before the design or the quality of the material that is fed to the child, or the quality of the teacher, or the salary or the motivation of the teacher. There's a whole world surrounding the capacity of the child to learn and be an educated person. I think we seriously need to consider the big spectrum, the entire spectrum surrounding the education phenomenon.
All right, I'm talking about reform. If we wanted to get a radical shift, so we provide equity across regions, across gender, across private schools versus public schools, how would we do it? How would the government have to do it?
You know me, my view is that we do not need to over-centralize management, because it becomes too big and it does not get enough attention. You know, our ideology in my party, Uganda Federal Alliance, we advocate for federalism, where the different regions can take control of the policies, of priorities, of issues. For example, I just gave you an example of the report we had in Parliament in 2009, where an MP from Busoga says, in Busoga, our problem are eyes. And another region says, in the meantime, the Speaker is looking at the clock. Because
in the central
yes, because this item has been allocated 30 minutes on the order paper. So as we are discussing these extremely important things, the Speaker is looking at the clock because we need to get on to the next business on the order paper. I'm telling you, since 2009, these extremely important things have never been referred to anywhere, ever, at all. But if we had regional governments, the regional government, say, of Busoga, would spend time to discuss this and also find a solution for this. But the solution that you find for Busoga is not the same solution that you will find in say, Acholi, because the issues are different. In Acholi, they want to deal with nodding disease, and in Bududa, nodding disease is not their problem. They have a different problem.
The other day, someone had to bring them to the capital to have the problem addressed, to catch the eye of the television.
Exactly. To bring them to Mulago, just to catch the eye. And then they did hurriedly, but then they had to move on. You know, to put it in context, the National Parliament has got 365 days to handle all the issues. But a regional parliament would equally have 365 days to deal with a regional matter. And each regional matter, each region would have 365 days just to deal with matters.
So there's a multiplier effect.
So that multiplier effect, it helps a lot. But it hurts me, it shocks me, it shocked me then when I was in Parliament that there are so many serious regional issues that cannot even be given 1 hour in totality to discuss because we had to move on to the next item on the agenda. And what hurts me most is that they have never been raised ever at all. If you want to find them, just go to the Hansard. That's where they are in the archives, and no one has ever picked them. Not the Minister of Education, not anybody who is concerned with these issues. They're just left in the archives. So we need, that's why I said we need a holistic approach to the problems of Uganda, because they're interrelated. They are not in isolation. We need a holistic approach to understand whether our system adequately addresses our needs and our problems.
Let's look at some of the things that used to happen in those regional governments. I believe we had one in the 60s, and before that, 62 had a federal constitution. What kind of arrangement did we have then, and what would be changed to make it work now? How would it benefit in real terms?
I don't even think that the 62 arrangement was the best arrangement for Uganda.
You can give us as a case study and then give us the dynamics, how it would work now, for instance.
How it would work now?
Service delivery, yes.
We would have regions, federal states or federal regions if you like, which have enough power and authority, which would have their own parliaments, the equivalent of their district councils if you like, the equivalent of a council, but it would be a regional parliament. And that parliament, we would even have, most importantly, a budget which is controlled and predictable. What is happening now is that we send all our resources. They're all siphoned from each corner of the country. They come to the capital. But what trickles back?
17%.
I'm telling you, but 85% of the 17% is administrative cost. But it's about 4% that actually reaches the people, if you work the statistics properly. In the 2010-11 national budget, which amounted, the total domestic revenue was 7.5 trillion. Then we got about 3 trillion as budget support from the donors. So we had a total basket envelope of about 10.5 trillion. Now, out of 10.5 trillion, only 1.7 trillion went back directly to the people through local government grants.
That's 17%.
Grant, 17%. But of that 17%, 70% is conditional grants, basically for salaries and allowances and electricity and fuel, whatever. So what directly reaches the people for service delivery out of the budget is about 4%. But in a devolved system, the bulk of the money, it's the reverse actually. The pyramid is reversed. It's the bulk of the money remain at source, because that's where the people are, and that's where it belongs. And only a reasonable percentage goes up to the top, but the bulk of the money remains at source.
All right, let's talk about the number.
By the way,
yes.
Before I leave this point, people need to understand that it's one of the reasons that there's rampant poverty in the country.
Because there's no federalism. No,
because the money, where money is, circulates, it's where there's work, it's where there's development, it's where there are jobs. So when you take all the money to Kampala, there's no money left to circulate in the regions. Hence, the grinding poverty, the colossal.
People sell land to come and ride border borders in town.
People sell land to come and ride. So there's no money circulating in the villages. So there are no jobs. So there's no development. There's nothing happening in the villages because the money is siphoned and brought to Kampala. So if you're looking for a job, you have to come to Kampala. And that also impacts on the quality of education because the parents don't have money. That's why they can't even buy food for their children. And the children go to school hungry. I don't even understand these statistics which says
88% passed.
88% passed, and then it says 81% are UPE.
Yes.
81% are UPE, 88% passed, and I know some of us know the quality of.
Well, passing is grade 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you got grade 4, you are a success.
You have passed. All right.
Let's talk about the statistics the future of government in education provision. Apart from setting the syllabus, you gave us statistics from Rubaga, for instance, as synopsis. 600 out of 617 are privately owned. Does the government have a future in providing education?
600 in Rubaga. The last time I checked, when I was a member of parliament, there were 617 schools, and of those, only 17
were government owned.
But
that's different in the villages. It's the other way around, probably.
In the villages, but it's quickly changing. Also,
you can't have a private school,
especially
do that for it. You won't make money.
No, you won't make money. That's true. But I think it's changing quickly. You'll find that when USE was introduced, not every sub-county had a government-owned school that would provide USE. So there are more actually private, but yet every sub-county, I think, does have some private schools, but not all sub-counties have a government school. And that was a problem in the implementation of UPA. They had to find a private school which would be government-aided if it was within 10 kilometers, a radius of 10 kilometers where there was no, I think it was like where there was, USE was supposed to provide at least one school in a sub-county.
Yes.
Now, we have 1,000 sub-counties. 1,000. Now, if there are many sub-counties which do not have government schools, yet there are about 11,000 primary schools. Now, 11,000 primary schools are supposed to feed 1,000 secondary schools. How would that work?
It's automatically some would drop. Either you have large secondary schools or many of them drop by the wayside.
It just doesn't work. You cannot, 11,000 primary schools
cannot fit 1,000.
Cannot fit into 1,000 secondary schools, and so and I think it's all about 60%, like 600 government schools, you know, and you need 1,000 to have at least one in a sub-county. So where are the other students supposed to go anyway? Those who are finishing P7.
Indeed. Well, the others, are they learning? This is Spectrum. You can call in now. Our number 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Let's look a little bit at the higher levels of education. Are they slanted towards improving the quality of life, providing value in the end? Honorable Kamya. Several have complained of too many universities. We have more universities.
We have a lot of universities, and we're always complaining about joblessness, which is another problem, because people think that being employed means
having a white collar. Spectrum, hello.
Going somewhere to ask for a job.
Yes, hello. Good evening, sir. Your name?
Yes, good evening, Sebo. Wow, come.
I have one question. That it depends on education. The problem of Uganda is poor education. But Mr. President, I want to ask you. I know that Uganda State government of President Hussein still having 3 years ahead. And I know that after the 3 years, Uganda Federal is going to take over this company, this Uganda, okay? But I want to know what your advice are going to give Mr. Museveni That's that it promote Uganda because like every this rural area. I know that the problem is educational problem in Uganda area. Like rural area, like that was of 40. What government should do so that they promote our education in rural areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kauma. We'll get the answer to that question. Our number is 0414348111. Spectrum, hello?
Hello.
Yes, your name?
My name is Owere.
Yes, Mr. Owere.
I want to congratulate the children under very, very difficult conditions, especially the and the children have managed to have something very, very important. And I also want to actually say Madam Kamya that having something is better than having nothing. But what we need to do is USD and VTD. So very difficult that we need after bettering and improving. That for now, I think they have lifted the standard of education. For the population of Uganda is very competitive. We are about 7 million, but now we have 20%. Now, USD and VTD have at least covered some areas. Now, you're the political leaders in this country. Come out with a new program that can change the system of education. Yes, somebody from primary children can be able tomorrow to at least in Uganda, you can start actually talking about the students that you can't manufacture them from here. Now, we need to change the system of education where like, people have got something to do. And I just want to end by congratulating your children. What is very well this year.
All right, Spectrum, hello? Can you switch off your radio? Okay. When you call in, please switch off your radio. Spectrum, hello?
Hello.
Yes, your name?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to you. Your name?
I'm David.
David, yes.
Yes, there's a quick one. Something that we are forgetting is those that enroll in P1, especially those that are seeking for the DLE, because we have something like 500,000, but that's like only 25% of those who enroll in primary. So that means that there are those that dropped out in between. I'm not talking about it. But then let's also talk about those that we are now measuring the 500 who have completed, and just saying 88% of them have passed. Now these are statistics that are mistaken, because we have quite a number that in my view cannot join secondary because of the points, and some of them are in fourth grade, some are in third grade, which is really not competitive in those schools. So we should now start looking at the real issues that affect children. One of them is mentioned the teachers, but then also there is lack of information. There are children who are dropping out because of genetic pregnancy. There are teachers also understanding the environment in the homes is also not good for children. Parents neglect their own children, guardians. So there are quite a number of issues that we need to start tackling if we want to provide education. Actually, there are quite a number of national governments that because of that we do stop them. Thank you.
David, thank you. Spectrum, hello? Okay, let's get back to you, Honorable Bettie Kamya. Let's look at some of these issues that have been raised. Okay, hello?
Hello?
Yes, your name?
Yes, this is James Kasera.
Yes, Mr. Kashaya.
I want to thank you and the President of the Uganda Federal Alliance. What disturbs me, and actually I want also that the President of that party will also clarify. What do they mean when they say quality education? Because it's so technical. Some people think that when you speak the Queen's English, that's the quality of education. But we have seen countries that are excelling, not necessarily speaking foreign language. And this one now goes to the system of the kind of education we want, the technical education. The education that is able to add value on development of the nations. The education that is going to add value to the economy of the country. We have professors who cannot even manufacture a needle. We have courses which are useless. Bachelors of Arts in Uganda, Bachelors of Arts in Uganda, Bachelors of Arts in photocopying.
I would like to see that course.
Education system that is going to benefit us. China is the best country you can go. They can't speak English, but everything we use in Africa and abroad, they Chinese. Good evening.
Mr. Kashan, perhaps before you go, well, we lost you there. You should have wanted to know exactly what you mean. You spoke about local languages being a good thing, but then you seem to say local languages should not be promoted. Honorable Bettie, give us some perspective on some of this.
I want to thank all these gentlemen who are found in Kauma Sitenda, Were, David, and of course James Kashaya. Beginning with Kauma Sitenda, who said, what advice would you give to President Museveni on management of education in rural schools? I think I've already said what I stand for.
Yes.
I stand for devolution. That quality, if you take management closer to the people, of course, as a nation, we need a curriculum which is national, at the national level. But then the management of that policy should be devolved to the different regions, who are then able to allocate budgets depending on their different perspectives, so that, for instance, if this year, I would say, if this year, for instance, in Acholi, for instance, they would have 1 year of dealing with nodding disease.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it will impact on education. But while Acholi is dealing with nodding disease, Busoga is dealing with glasses for the children. So you need that kind of management where people can pay attention and concentrate on that. And that is why, incidentally, for us, we are pushing for a federal system of governance. Then Mr. Owere says having something is better than having nothing.
Half a loaf.
Which is true, half a loaf. But for us taxpayers, we pay for a full loaf. And we need accountability for the full loaf. When we pay for the full loaf includes you going to foreign countries and borrowing money for us, which you do, and which they are also willing to give. But when the money comes here, what does it do? So our full loaf includes giving a government full authority to plan for us, to think for us, to administer and to deliver for us. We are prepared to have a full loaf as long as there's a plan clear to everybody on the steps that are taking us to the full loaf. But we cannot just survive on half loaf with no clear plan on when the full loaf is coming, yet we are paying for the full loaf. So I don't mind half a loaf as long as there's a clear plan that at such and such a time, going through such and such a stage, I will eventually get my full loaf. I think that's what I would say for Owere.
Yeah. Yes, David.
And David is right. He has brought a very important aspect to this. We enroll 2 million
in primary one.
Is it 2 million?
Around about that.
Yeah, but the last time they were saying we enrolled 1 million every year, because now we're supposed to have about 8 million children in primary section.
Yes.
And for that, Uganda gets very high compliments from the
Completion rate is less than half.
international. But completion is less than a half. So what happens with the other kids? Where do they go? Well, I mean, we know, of course, some of them drop out. But I think one of the other most important thing that the dropout rate is high is the lack of motivation. If you go to schools and there are no teachers and there are no books and there's no food and there's no there's one teacher to 200 students, and you know they don't mark your books, the motivation to stay in school also needs to be built. That's why I was talking about the holistic approach to the problem in our education.
Mr. Kashe,
We must recognize really that the dropout rate from 1 million to 400 and
half a million.
half a million is not acceptable at all. And mind you, by the time they finish senior 4,
There'll be fewer still.
There'll be 160,000. This is 400,000.
That's 30%.
Only 160,000. So for students who started in P1, 1 million students who started in P1, only 160,000
Right.
sit S4, which is 10%.
Okay.
So along the way, there's a very, very serious problem.
And then Mr. Kashe is concerned that of the few that make it to university, some go and do bachelors in photo.
I think he's right. That's the whole debate. What is quality of education? Is it somebody who just repeat what you told him to say, just to repeat, give you back what you told them to say? Is that the kind of quality of education? Even in so-called good schools, there's a lot of spoon feeding. The teacher says something and you just give them back what, as long as
The
you
marks
remember.
depend on how well you say it.
How well
Back.
you say it, and you remember. Maybe you can remember, but you don't have to think
All right.
about it.
Okay.
So, but I think we must, I agree with James Kashaya, we must begin to emphasize technical education. We must.
All right.
And there are people, I was talking to one person, because you know I have, I started a bursary program for people of Lubaga North when I was member of parliament, and it's still working on, and it's still working. And I was talking to funders who can give a full scholarship to one person, but I wanted them to consider that scholarship can do of about 20,000 or 40,000 pounds.
All right.
That scholarship can transform a whole sub-county.
We have to go. Thank you very much, the Honorable Bettie. And of course, we have more universities than technical institutes. The last time I checked the figures, which is totally upside down.
We have more universities than technical schools.
Yes.
Do we have any technical schools anyway?
There you are. Thank you very much, the Honorable Bettie Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance Party. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. The Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next is the news. Stay tuned.
My greatest